Hello everyone and welcome to my 2023 NFL post-draft power rankings. If you're an NFL fan like myself, you're probably wondering how good is my team going to be next season? And if you're thinking that, then you're in luck because I'm going to tell you exactly where each NFL team stands heading into the 2023 NFL season. Let's go. At number 32, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the reason why the Arizona Cardinals are the worst team heading into the 2023 NFL season is because of Kyler Murray. He tore his ACL last year in Week 14, and he's projected to not come back until halfway through this season, which means they're going to have Colt McCoy at quarterback again. Remember, last year they didn't win a single game without Kyler Murray. Coming in at 31st, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They are my worst ranked team ending last season, and they have Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback. I really don't like that. I really don't think he's going to be a good fit on the Colts. There's also plenty of questions on the offensive line and the secondary. Last season, they were pretty bad. But the seasons before, the offensive line was top 5 in the league. Their defense was all right too. So it just depends on what version of the Indianapolis Colts we're going to get. Coming in at 30th, we have the Houston Texans. I love the Texans draft. They did some amazing things in that draft. They drafted C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson back-to-back. Obviously, for C.J. Stroud, not heading into a great situation in Houston. I love the DeMeco Ryans hire for head coach. They'll do great things for their defense, but there are still plenty of holes on that team. There are really too many to fill in one offseason. Coming at 29th, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, the biggest headline coming from the Buccaneers offseason is the retirement of Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady. Now they signed Baker Mayfield in the offseason to take his place. Obviously, that's a huge drop-off from a Hall of Fame quarterback because Baker Mayfield is far from that. At 28th, I have what might be a shocker to some people, the Los Angeles Rams. They won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I have them ranked 28th headed into the 2023 NFL season. This is for a variety of reasons. Obviously, Matthew Stafford had that big neck injury last season. He's an old quarterback. That's got to be concerning. I do like the moves that the Rams made in the offensive line, but honestly, this team is so injury prone. We really don't know what's going to happen 2023. Also, Aaron Donald is really the only big name starter on that defense. Alright, at 27th, I have the Tennessee Titans. There's really not too much to like about the Tennessee Titans. They have a very average defense. They'll get some starters back, hopefully, but obviously a lot of them are very injury prone. They also have an injury prone quarterback at Ryan Tannehill, who's also getting pretty old. And to make matters worse, the Tennessee Titans last season had the worst offensive line in the league. They did tackle it in the draft by drafting offensive tackle Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. I love that pick, but there are plenty of holes still on the offensive line. If they can't keep Ryan Tannehill healthy, Will Levis will come in. I don't think Will Levis is even ready to start an NFL game yet. Alright, at 26th, I have the Atlanta Falcons. You have to remember is the quarterback position is the most important position on a football team, and the Falcons just don't have a great quarterback, okay? I don't like Desmond Ridder as the starting quarterback. I don't think he's going to be that good. Obviously, the Falcons have a top 5 offensive line. I love Drake London. Obviously, they drafted Bijan Robinson in the offseason. They have Kyle Pitts. They have plenty of weaponry offensively. So if they can't get stuff done, it's because of the quarterback position. The Falcons' defense is still not going to be great. I know a lot of people are hyping up the signings they made in the offseason. Obviously, Calais Campbell. You got Jesse Bates coming in at safety. But there's still plenty of holes. A lot of these guys are pretty old, especially Calais Campbell. He's not going to be able to turn things around by himself. Alright, 25th, I have the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears had the worst record at the end of last season, but honestly, I think they've made plenty of improvements to this roster. They've given Justin Fields so many weapons to work with. I love Dante Foreman. I love DJ Moore, obviously, and drafting Darnell Wright out of Tennessee at offensive tackle. This offense will be phenomenal. My concerns for the Bears come defensively. There are plenty of questions on that secondary. I love the Tremaine Edmonds signing, but also on the defensive line. I don't think the Bears' defense is quite ready to put any pressure on any quarterback. Okay, coming in at 25th, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, one of the biggest headlines from the Raiders this offseason was the signing of quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. I think this offense will be an above average offense. Obviously, you got some huge stars on that roster. Josh Jacobs was the best running back last season. Devontae Adams is a top 10 wide receiver. My biggest concerns for the Raiders, however, are on the defensive side of the ball. I love Max Crosby. I love the Tyree Wilson pick. Pairing him up with Max Crosby will be phenomenal, but there are plenty of concerns at the linebacker position and in the secondary for the Raiders. 23rd, I have the Washington Commanders. This is a team I've consistently seen being ranked towards the bottom of everyone's power rankings. I'm seeing them at like 30, 29. Honestly, I think that's way too low for this team. We have to remember this is the only team in the regular season to beat the Jalen Hurts-led Philadelphia Eagles. They have Sam Howell at quarterback. The Washington Commanders have so many weapons on both sides of the ball. They have Brian Robinson at running back I love. They have Scary Terry at wide receiver. There are plenty of weapons around the team to support Sam Howell in his development. I also love the defense. I love the Emmanuel Forbes pick. I think it was a great pick in the draft. I think this defense is a top 10 defense. I also love the offensive weapons, like I said earlier. So I think the Commanders might be a little bit underrated. I don't think they're that good. We have to see how good Sam Howell is. All right, at 22nd, we have the New England Patriots. This is another team that people are constantly ranking really low on their power rankings. And this is because, again, of the quarterback position. Is Mac Jones their guy? Is he not their guy? We don't really know. I like the Patriots' offensive line, but I have to admit they have some mediocre offensive weapons. One thing I love about the New England Patriots is their defense. They're going to have another top 5 defense. I love the Christian Gonzalez pick. It was such a great value pick for the New England Patriots. I think this team is going to be underrated for sure. All right, at 21st, I have the New Orleans Saints. Honestly, I feel like this team could be so much better, but I really don't like Dennis Allen as the head coach there. He doesn't have a good track record of head coaching. He now has Derek Carr, former Oakland and Las Vegas Raider, at quarterback. I think he's an above-average quarterback. They have an alright offensive line, and they have an above-average defense that can get the job done. Just a matter of whether these offensive weapons can stay healthy, and it's also a matter of how does Derek Carr perform under this new coaching system. At 20th, I have the Carolina Panthers. I was extremely high on the Carolina Panthers at the end of last season. They ended the season 7-2. They were on a roll. They had momentum. And all they have done since then is upgrade their roster. They made insane offense upgrades this offseason by hiring Frank Reich as their head coach. This is probably the best, or my favorite at least, head coaching signing this offseason. Pair him with a bright young quarterback in Bryce Young, who's going to be the future of this team, along with veteran wide receivers DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, and veteran running back Miles Sanders. This offense is going to be on the next level next season. All right, coming in at 19th, we have the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, we all know the biggest headline coming out of the Packers offseason was them trading Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. Now, Jordan Love will finally get a chance after sitting and learning under the veteran Hall of Fame quarterback for 3 years. He'll finally get a chance to start all 17 games in the 2023 NFL season. It's obviously a lot of the receiving core on the Green Bay Packers are very young, but they do have a veteran offensive line and a veteran running back who are both really good. I think the defense is going to be solid. It all comes down to how good is Jordan Love going to be next season. All right, coming in at 18th, we have the Cleveland Browns. This is a very interesting team. It all comes down again to the quarterback position, the quarterback being Deshaun Watson. What version of Deshaun Watson are we going to get? Are we going to get the version of Deshaun Watson we saw last season, who was not good at all and was the reason why the Browns lost many games? Or is it going to be the Deshaun Watson we saw in Houston, who is a borderline Hall of Fame elite quarterback? I love what the Browns did this offseason. I love the offensive additions they made. I think they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the league. My main concerns with the Cleveland Browns is the defense. I think they're going to have a slightly below average defense. There are plenty of holes on the team, especially In the secondary, I love the Juwan Thornhill signing from Kansas City, but he's not going to carry all the weight. I do think they're going to need some more future talent in that spot on their team. Okay, at 17th, we have the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings are a perfect example of a team who is great on one side of the ball, but terrible on the other side of the ball. The Minnesota Vikings are going to have a top 5 offense. They added Jordan Love in the offseason. They have plenty of good wide receivers already. KJ Osborne, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook's a great quarterback. I think Kirk Cousins gets more hate than he deserves, and I feel like the offensive line is pretty solid in Minnesota. But, however, they lost both of their starting cornerbacks in free agency this offseason in Patrick Peterson and Duke Shelley, and they have not done anything to address this situation. The only thing they've done defensively that's notable to me is hiring Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. I think he'll make the most of what he's got in Minnesota. Obviously, I think he's one of the greatest defensive minds in the NFL right now, but he really doesn't have a valuable roster to work with. Okay, now we're heading into the top 50% of teams in the NFL. And starting out at number 16, I have the New York Football Giants. Last season, the Giants shocked the world. They went from one of the worst teams the past 3 seasons to a playoff game-winning team on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Daniel Jones improved significantly, and there's no reason this team should be worse as long as Daniel Jones continues to improve. I love what Brian Daboll has done with the franchise. I love the Darren Waller trade especially. The Giants are finally going to have a reliable receiver, hopefully on that roster. I think the Giants have an above-average defense, and I love the Deonte Banks pick. He will start next season for them, I believe. I think the Giants' defense is going to be good enough to put them in good situations to win football games. Many people won't think they will be able to win. Coming in at 15th, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, a fan favorite, Kenny Pickett, heading into his second year with Mike Tomlin as his head coach. I can only see him improving from there. He wasn't the best rookie compared to what we have seen from other rookies nowadays, but he was not bad in the slightest. They add Allen Robinson to that squad. I love that offense with Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. Najee Harris hopefully will come out of the shell and do what he did his rookie season. I love the Broderick Jones pick, the offensive tackle from Georgia. Fills a much-needed hole on that Steelers offensive line. I also love the Steelers defense. I love TJ Watt. I love Minkah Fitzpatrick. And they got Joey Porter in the beginning of the second round in the NFL draft. I think he's going to start. Fills another much-needed hole on that defense. I think this team is only going to improve from what they did last season. And I can see them contending for a playoff spot. Next at number 14, this may come as a shock to many people, but I have the Denver Broncos ranked 14th in my 2023 post-draft power rankings. This is for many reasons, but the main one is the hiring of head coach Sean Payton. You go from Nathaniel Hackett to a Super Bowl winning coach. This is the biggest turnaround in the NFL this offseason. Russell Wilson really doesn't have any excuses now. I know his offensive line was not good last season, but now they add guys like Ben Power, Mike McGlinchey. These guys are going to make a solid offense, and they're also going to get Javonte Williams back. People forget how good Javonte Williams really was. I had him in fantasy his rookie season, and he was phenomenal. All right, moving on. At 13, we have my Detroit Lions. This is an incredibly young team. They just traded DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. They now have Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is really good, but again, it's a new system. Sam Laporta, I think he's a very good player, but a new system, young guys working with Jared Goff. Obviously, I love the offensive line. I think the offense will be fine, and I can't go without saying how much they've worked on this defense in the offseason. I think the secondary is going to be significantly better than the one we had last season. They added so many players: Cam Sutton, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, Brian Branch in the draft. I think this secondary is going to be completely revamped and was their biggest weakness last season. Now, currently on this team, the biggest weakness is the defensive line. I like the Jack Campbell pick. Obviously, they have Aiden Hutchinson there in his second year. I still think, however, there are a few holes on the defensive line, and that's what's going to be holding them back from being an elite football team. Moving in at number 12, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is entering his second year under the Doug Peterson system, and I have to say, I love it. I love the wide receivers on this team. They're getting Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is finally making his return to the NFL on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pair him up with Christian Kirk and Zay Flowers, Travis Etienne, the running back even, Evan Ingram, the tight end, and you draft Anton Harrison, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. This offense is going to be elite. It's going to be a top 10 offense. My main concerns with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the reason why they aren't higher on this list, is because of the weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like in their secondary especially, there are a few weaknesses that the Jaguars need to address in future seasons. But honestly, I feel like their offense will be good enough to overcome these obstacles. Okay, so now we're heading into the final pick before we head into the top 10. At number 11, I have the Miami Dolphins. The biggest concern, obviously, with the Dolphins this upcoming season is the quarterback position. Tua Tagovailoa had 3 concussions last season, and the Dolphins failed to address the offensive line this offseason. That's extremely concerning for me, but if Tua Tagovailoa is able to stay healthy, this team can do wonders. I love their receivers. Obviously, you got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Both of them are top 10, top 12 wide receivers in the league. I love the Jalen Ramsey addition to the team. The concerns, though, on the offensive line are just too much for me to put them into the top 10 with the rest of these teams. These are my top 10 NFL teams headed in to the 2023 NFL season. At number 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys. I think the offense is going to regress a little bit. I like the Brandon Cooks signing. Obviously, they lost Dalton Schultz. The most important piece of this offense that the Cowboys lost was their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, who was something else. He went to the Chargers, and now Mike McCarthy is calling plays for the Dallas Cowboys. Other than that, I think the Cowboys had a great draft. I love the Mozzie Smith pick. I think this defense is going to be scary. At number 9, and this is going to be weird coming out of my mouth. Whoa. This is just not a team that I ever have ranked very high. That team is the New York Jets. Obviously, the biggest headline for the New York Jets was acquiring veteran Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers. There's plenty of young stars on this team and a wide receiver he knows and loves in Allen Lazard. This defense is already elite with Will McDonald being drafted in the first round. I think this defense will get slightly better as well. The New York Jets are a top 10 football team. Coming in at number 8, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, the team that just hired Kellen Moore as their new offensive coordinator. I still don't like Brandon Staley as their head coach. I think he's doing kind of a bang-up job because the talent on this roster is loaded and they can't win a playoff game. But it's okay because now they have a great offensive-minded coach in Kellen Moore who can hopefully get the ball rolling and turn Justin Herbert into that Hall of Fame quarterback that we want him to be. They got Rashawn Slater coming back from injury. I think the offensive line is going to be significantly improved from what it was last season. The defense is going to get J.C. Jackson back from injury. There's so many loaded players on that Chargers defense like Khalil Mack. They have to figure something out. Moving on to number 7 on this list, we have the Seattle Seahawks. This might come as a shock to many people. Obviously, you got Geno Smith as the starting quarterback. He did phenomenal last season, revived his whole NFL career. He is a little bit older, but he only got more offensive weapons, so there's really no reason why he should regress. Yeah, Seattle has a few concerns on the offensive and defensive lines that they didn't exactly address in the draft, but they did draft Devon Witherspoon as well as Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're going to have such a good secondary and such a good offense in general. I just think it'll overshadow the woes on the defensive line. Moving on to number 6, I have the Baltimore Ravens. They finally paid Lamar Jackson the money he deserved. This is an NFL MVP we're talking about. Ravens just secured him for 5 years while also adding veteran wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. They also drafted Zay Flowers, who is a guy I love. If you watch the tape, watching the tape of Zay Flowers is amazing. I do love their secondary still. There's a few concerns on the defensive line, but other than that, I think this team is elite. I feel like they'll be way better than they were last season, assuming that Lamar Jackson can remain healthy throughout the whole season. All right, here we go. Here are my top 5 NFL teams heading into the 2023 NFL season. Starting off at number 5, I have the Buffalo Bills. Now, I do think the Bills are going to regress a little bit this upcoming season. This is the Buffalo Bills. I think Josh Allen is a great quarterback. Yes, he's making more mistakes. I do think some of his weaknesses are starting to show a little bit more clearly. But now, with Dalton Kincaid, he has that Travis Kelce, George Kittle type of player that the Bills were looking for. Obviously, they lost Tremaine Edmonds in free agency to the Chicago Bears, and I do wish they made some more moves in the offseason to assist their secondary and their offensive line, but obviously it's so hard to bet against the Buffalo Bills. Moving on to 4, we have the San Francisco 49ers. With Christian McCaffrey, they are an unstoppable NFL team. This team is insane, even with Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy at quarterback. I do think their offensive line will regress a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see how Brock Purdy reacts to that. I think he'll be okay. If he's not, they obviously got Trey Lance behind him in case he is needed as well and will do a better job. But I love the receiving core on the 49ers. You got to love Deebo Samuel. You got to love Brandon Ayuk. You got to love George Kittle, obviously. And this is a top 5 defense we're dealing with here. All right, coming in at number 3, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. They have the second best quarterback in the league with Joe Burrow. He seems to be able to win in super difficult situations. He's such a leader for that team as well. Such a confident guy, perfect quarterback. I think he can even be on the same level as Patrick Mahomes sometimes. I love the offense. I love Joe Mixon on that squad. I love Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. They also added Orlando Brown in the offseason, improving that offensive line. There are some concerns that I have on their secondary. Obviously, they lost a lot of starters, but they do have an incredibly good defensive line. And honestly, I think their offense is so elite that their defensive woes will be overshadowed by how great the offense is. Moving into number 2. This is going to be a shock to some people, because I've consistently seen the Kansas City Chiefs ranked number 1, but I have them ranked number 2 for a couple reasons. They did lose some big name players. I don't think their defensive line is as good, and they don't really have as many flashy offensive weapons. Now, obviously, they prove time and time again that you don't really need them, but look, I have them ranked 2nd, okay? Because there is a team right above them who I think do have the flashy weapons, a better defense, and that team is the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know how a team does this. The Philadelphia Eagles just went to the Super Bowl last season. They could have won it. They almost won it. But somehow, someway, they managed to continue to improve going into the 2023 NFL season, which is why they're my number 1 ranked team. Adding players like DeAndre Swift is incredible, pairing him up with the best offensive line in the league. You also got to look at the type of draft the Eagles had. They drafted Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, both Georgia guys, huge, great defensive players that are going to be paired up with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, already on the Eagles. I do like their secondary. They did lose a few players like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but I think they'll be perfectly fine. I know they lost both coordinators, but the players on this roster, especially Jalen Hurts as well, I think he's going to continue to improve. I think the Eagles made a huge jump up this offseason. I think they're going to be the #1 team heading into the 2023 NFL season. And that wraps up my 2023 NFL post-draft power rankings. If you disagreed about where I put your team, please let me know down in the comments below. If you liked where I put my team, if you think that my picks were great, then hit the subscribe button and go watch some more of my videos, please.